Good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are on book 3, chapter 6, Law of Destruction. Today we don't have Philip, we don't have Paco, so I'm going to read it. Okay, so capital punishment. Question 760. Will the death penalty ever disappear from human legal codes? The death penalty will disappear over the course of time. And when it does, its eradication will mark progress of the human race. When people become more enlightened, the death penalty will be completely abolished across the globe. And humans will no longer need to be judged by humans. This time is still a long way off. Comment by Kardec. The social progress already made leaves much to be desired, but it would be unfair for modern society not to recognize the progress that has been successfully made. We should think in terms of restrictions on capital punishment and the crimes for which it is handed down in the most advanced nations. If we compare the measures with which the law handles the accused and the humanity with which they are treated, even when found guilty in these countries, with the methods of criminal procedure used in the recent past, the progress of the human race is obvious. Okay, so when we talk about the death penalty or capital punishment, it's the first thing we need to remind ourselves is that this book was written in 1857, the first edition, and the third edition, the most common used one, 1860. For us to have an idea of how advanced this concept was for that time, in 1860, there were no countries in the world that didn't have the death penalty. There were two small, still today they are countries, they were small possessions, San Marino and Liechtenstein, that didn't have the death penalty in 1860. The first country to abolish death penalty was Venezuela in 1865, if I'm not mistaken. And then other countries followed. By 1977, meaning 50 years ago, more or less, only 16 countries had totally abolished the death penalty, right? Today, this number has risen to 110, plus 23 countries that have not abolished but hasn't executed anyone in more than 20 years. So that's more than half of the world's countries. Countries that actively still have the death penalty are 53. The only so-called developed country that has the death penalty is the United States. In the United States, 23 states have no death penalty, and 4 states have it, but haven't used it for the past 20 years. So more than half of the United States also does not have the death penalty. Why I'm telling you all this? Because we just studied law of progress, and this is progress. Of course, we know that according to Spiritism, to kill someone else it goes against the natural law. And so the death penalty goes against the natural law. Understanding as we understand in Spiritism what happens when we die, in reality, with the death penalty, we are freeing the spirit of the executed person, right? The spirit goes back to the spiritual world, is no longer in prison, and goes back with what? Anger, desire of vengeance, all the issues that many of us still have, but are aggravated by being executed, especially in some cases when they are innocent and they know they are innocent and they are condemned anyway, right? So, in terms of, and we're going to study a little bit more, right? In terms of keeping the guilty in jail for a long time or a lifetime in prison, gives the spirit an opportunity to reform itself, to learn from it, to educate themselves, and many of them end up changing how they see the world, how they see themselves, and they end up taking this wonderful opportunity of re-educating themselves. Of course, it's not general, each case is a case. But in terms of thinking of us as eternal spirits, being executed never is something that will help us, because there is nothing to gain from being executed, right? The spirit gets angry, or the spirit gets all the other things. The loved ones that stay behind get upset most of the cases also, because a mother would love a son or a daughter even if they are criminals and don't want them to be executed. Now, when we talk about spiritism, you see the law of progress. I described how we are evolving. So in 170 years since the book was published, we went from none to almost 2/3 of the countries that have no death penalty. So we can only conclude that another 150 years, we're probably going to have probably no country with death penalty. And here, of course, we can always go into the affluence, meaning there is murder in the streets, there are not official murders by police, by other things, but that's not what we're discussing here. We're discussing here sanctioned capital punishment by governments, okay? So that's what we're discussing here, because of course there is so much more going on, but we need to focus on what we are discussing here in terms of progress of humankind. So when we talk about capital punishment in terms of Earth, we can clearly see that we are evolving. Okay? Comments, questions? Okay. 761. The law of self-preservation gives human beings the right to protect their own lives. Aren't we simply exercising this right when we eliminate a dangerous member from society? There are other means of protecting yourselves from dangerous individuals than killing them. You should open the door of repentance for criminals rather than closing it to them. So here, the spirits talk exactly about what we were just discussing, right? When we are killing criminals, we are most likely closing the door of repentance, creating more anger, creating more desire of vengeance. And for those that take the decision of executing these criminals, it's an open door for obsessions also, right? Because who they are going to come after, these criminals, when they go back to the spiritual world, who their hatred is directed at, because the crime they committed, they may have repented, they may have it may have been for different reasons, but those that condemn them to death are those that they are going to come after and try to get vengeance from the other side. Okay? Right? 762. While the death penalty may one day be banished in civilized society, was it not necessary in more primitive times? Necessary is not the right word. Human beings always think that something is necessary when they cannot find anything better. As they become enlightened, they understand justice and injustice more clearly and reject the abuses committed during ignorant times, all in the name of justice. That is a very interesting question. And again, we have human beings killing each other since the beginning of times, right? In the beginning, by instinct, right? We have animals. We bring the instinct from the animal kingdom, right? As we evolve. And animals kill each other for to survive, for food. So the animals can fight for food and kill each other to have access to food also. So we bring these instincts, and when we were primitive spirits, of course, in order for us to survive, we had to find food was the most important thing for us to survive. And in order to find food, sometimes we had to fight against other humans that were there. And from there, when we start organizing ourselves in society, of course, so we organized ourselves in groups, and these groups had to defend themselves against other groups. And how they defend themselves? Fighting and killing each other. From there, we evolve into capturing them and killing them because they were guilty of being, I don't know, different, right? So we carry this, and the evolution of the death penalty came from being survival to persecution of enemies to a difference in as other countries, slaves, and so on and so forth. So we have been executing our brothers and sisters forever, right? If we talk about the Homo sapiens sapiens, which is probably what, 20,000, 50,000 years, something like that. That's the time we've been killing each other, right? So what is 150 years, right? It's nothing, right? And we made a lot of progress after 50,000 years killing everyone, each other without any without justice in a sense of true justice, right? We are progressing. Today we have an imperfect justice against no justice, which is progress, right? Today, even in this country, the death penalty for those that are condemned to death, it takes them 10, 20, sometimes more years to be executed, right? My wife the other day was watching Marie Antoinette, the wife of Louis XVI, that during the French Revolution, she was arrested together with the whole, and she went to a trial. She was condemned in the morning and executed in the afternoon, right? So no opportunity of anything.
Yeah.
And very interesting, right? All those that, with the exception of one, all of the jurors that condemned her were all of them executed also later, for different reasons at the time in France that they were killing everyone, right? Only one of them died of old age. So nowadays, you see, it is also progress here, right? Because we have countries that still execute in China and Saudi Arabia. They execute guilty people very quickly after being condemned, right? But when we see the movies about hanging, right? They are judged, condemned, and hanged the same day, right? So we are evolving. Our imperfect justice is evolving and evolves at different paces in different places, right? So yes, we are. when the Spirit says necessary is not the right word, it reminded me a phrase that I liked very much, right? Capitalism is the worst system in the world, but they haven't invented anything better, right? So, necessary is not the right word. We cannot find anything better, right? So that's what the spirits are telling us here. So that's where we are. Okay? Questions, comments?
I think the word necessary is very important.
Yeah.
Because we can imagine a time in which, first of all, the capital punishment, let's assume it's among members of the same tribe or the same group, right? It's a punishment, so much that you did something wrong and you're going to be punished by death, whatever that thing may be, right? So it's group, usually a group of the same tribe or the same community, which is different from killing in a war, for killing a dispute. It's a completely different thing, right? And there may be a point in time in which we did not see an alternative. For how long do you have cells, prisons? What about nomads? People who are traveling from point A to point B their whole life. How do you punish the criminal? What do you do with them? So they didn't see an alternative. So they used the capital punishment. They believed that somebody committed some kind of crime and need to be punished. How do you punish someone when you don't have no prisons? You are nomad. You know the guy is dangerous. If you let it go, we're gonna come back and do something to you.
Yeah, and it's a very good point.
The fact that we don't have an alternative does not mean that it's necessary.
Yeah.
But because we're so ignorant that it could not find an alternative.
Even the concept of staying in jail for a determined period of time is recent, right? At the time of the Christians or Paul of Tarsus, they all went to prison. They will stay in prison until they are executed. That's it. There is no the concept of staying in prison and staying alive. They were thrown in prisons. They would die in prisons, a lot of them, and inside or being executed after, because there was the concept of staying in prison. I didn't research that, but it's a recent concept. It's probably 200, 300 years. I don't know. The concept of being condemned to stay in prison but not executed.
Life sentence.
Yeah, life sentence. I don't know when life sentence first appeared, but I imagine probably 19th century or something like that, right? But yeah, it's an evolution of killing, right? Staying, and now the next evolution is to create better conditions in prisons, right? Because the conditions, unfortunately, make the criminals a lot of times worse than people that were not criminals become criminals when they go by mistake to jail, right?
It's right in the name. It's a punishment.
Yeah.
So you need to transform it from punishment to corrective. You have to seek to correct, not to punish.
Yeah. Which is the divine law, right? The divine law is a law of correction. It's not a law of punishment. We are not punished by God.
That's right.
We are the ones that punish ourselves by making the mistakes,
we get
deviate.
Opportunities to make corrections.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is the restriction of the number of cases in which the death penalty is enforced an indication of progress in civilization? Is there any doubt? Are you not revolted when you read about the human massacres that were once carried out in the name of justice and often in honor of God? What about the torture inflicted on the condemned and even on the accused to coerce a confession for crimes that they often had not committed? If you had lived during those times, you would have thought that this was all very natural. And if you had been a judge, you probably would have done the same. What seems right in one time is barbaric in another. Only God's laws are eternal, while societal laws change as human beings progress. they will continue to change until they are in harmony with God's law. So the Kardec asks about, at that time, the restriction of the number of cases in which the death penalty is enforced, meaning it was already being, in a sense, reduced, right? And this is 1850. If you think about the French Revolution, which was 60 years before, they executed everyone, right? First, they executed all the royalty, and then the revolutionaries start fighting against each other and executing each other, and so much so that the Napoleon took over as an emperor to finish the abuses by the French Revolution. And then Napoleon started to abuse and was thrown out, and then the monarchy was reimposed, right? You had Louis XVIII, right? At the time of Kardec, I think they had a king there. And then it ended and they became a republic. But I don't know exactly in which year France became a republic. But again, here, when they talk about, the spirits talk about the torture inflicted on the condemned, we see that on that side, we are still doing that, right? We are still coercing confessions for crimes, and many times individuals confess out of exhaustion. We see that in movies, and it's actually the reality, right? They are tortured until they admit a crime they didn't commit many times. Sometimes they did, but many times they didn't. So what the spirits are telling us here, right, is that depends on when we live, we find some of these things natural, part of what society, right? At the time of the Romans, the Christians were taken to the arena and eaten by animals or executed in public, and it was a circus, right? An event that everyone would go and watch, and and nowadays it's considered barbaric, right? Public executions mostly do not exist. Even the capital punishment here in the US, a restricted number of people are invited to watch for different reasons, but it's not a public execution. There are still countries that have public executions. That's a different story. But what the Spirit says here, right? When what seems right one time is barbaric in another, and only God's laws are perfect and eternal, and our laws will continue to change until we align with God's law. And we can imagine that when we align with God's law, we no longer will need human laws, right? Because if everybody follows the natural laws and God's law, we don't need human laws, right? But of course, we're very far from that.
Yeah, so the progress is undeniable. And if you just think you just cover the front side, at one point it was normal to kill newborns or up a year of age. It's normal. Slavery was normal. Women rights. We talk about human rights.
Yeah.
Labor rights.
Yeah.
That workers had. So the tremendous amount of progress. And unfortunately, we still have to deal with some very barbaric acts in our days today. Talking about capital punishment. How is it acceptable that today someone is condemned to death penalty to be in a boat in the middle of the ocean without having the right of being defended by a lawyer? And some people is applauding, thinking it's right,
yeah.
and even Joy seeing the videos of that. Where are these people living?
Yeah.
5,000 years ago?
Yes. So this of course, it's you are going to face responsibility not only for the
executioners, but those who applauded.
For the evil you have done, but also for the good that you have the opportunity to do and didn't do. Every time you are applauding barbaric acts, you are incurring in consequences for yourself, right? But again, some things that we consider natural nowadays that we don't know now are going to be considered barbaric in 200 years or 500 years, right?
It is now, most.
No, but some things that we think are normal, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that we think are part of our daily lives that we don't, we're not talking about crimes. We're talking about things that, maybe I'm not going to guess here because, yeah, it's not, but, you could say, how could you drive like crazy, right? We have people driving like crazy. Wow, this is barbaric. Maybe in 200 years when all the cars have no drivers and everything follows the rules, and you're going to look back and imagine how barbaric these times that people were driving these cars and hitting each other, right? But again, we live in society, and we are all also evolving morally and intellectually and learning from it. But we have the law. God's law is imprinted in our conscience. It's just a matter of us accessing it, allowing it to flow to our thoughts. So, well, we didn't talk about Jesus, right? Jesus was executed, was condemned to death. And if Jesus could, what about all the others, right? So here he is. Jesus said, those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword. All these words of the recognition of the law of retaliation. Is the death penalty enforced on a murderer an application of this law? Be careful. Like so many others, you have misinterpreted the meaning of these words. The only good retaliation in God's justice only good retaliation is God's justice, because God applies it. You are all enduring this retribution at all times because you are punished for your wrongdoings in this life or in another. Those who have caused their fellow human beings to suffer will be placed in a situation where they will suffer what they cause others to endure. This is the true meaning of Jesus' words. He has also said, forgive your enemies. And he taught you to pray that God may forgive your trespasses as you forgive those who have trespassed against you, meaning exactly proportionate to your forgiveness towards others. Try to absorb the full meaning of those words. Very strong words from the spirits here, calling our attention on misinterpretation of the words of Jesus that we still do until this day, right? Because many religions try to follow literally the words that they find in some books. And if you read this, and those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword, and you don't think about reincarnation, you think this is the only life we have, the only interpretation is that, you have to be killed the way you killed, right? So what the spirits are telling us is the only good retaliation is God's justice. So God's law is perfect. It's the law of cause and consequence, action and reaction is a perfect law. Whatever we do here, positive or negative, will have consequences, positive or negative. Now, it is not an eye for an eye, because if it was an eye for an eye, it would mean that we would have to pay exactly the same way that the same manner that we committed the crime. And what the what you learn in the Gospel according to Spirit is, of course, is that we have different opportunities to repair our mistakes, to actively repair our mistakes by helping others, by changing ourselves. So we are going to face consequences, yes, because this is the natural law. But we can alleviate these consequences up to the point of almost no consequences, right? That's the famous story of that man that lost the finger and went to talk to Chico Xavier and asked Chico, said, Chico, I think I led a pretty good life. I took care of everyone, my family, the others. I never caused any harm to anyone. Why did I have this accident? And Chico told him, listen, you were supposed to lose an arm, but because of all your good behavior and because of the work you are doing, you only lost a finger, right? So there was what he built for himself in terms of good deeds and good actions alleviated the consequences of what he had done. He probably, I don't know this part, but he probably used his arm in a way to cause harm to others. So, the choice for his reincarnation was to lose the arm to face the consequences of his misactions. And because of such a transformation that he made in this incarnation, he only lost a finger, right? So if he was an eye for an eye, I don't know, he probably would have to face a much more difficult consequence. Okay?
Emmanuel says that this Hammurabi code, you could make synonymous over here. You take the sword, you die by the sword. Emmanuel says that is limited only to the spirits who, given all the opportunities, reject all the opportunities to make any improvement whatsoever. Then there is the law, there is no choice but let them go to the highest level of this corrective measure is to go through the same thing that he or she caused to someone else, because they refused absolutely to use all the opportunities to make any slightly change in themselves.
Okay. So last one here. Let's finish death penalty. What should we think of the enforcement of death penalty in God's name? This takes God's place in the administration of justice. Those who do this show how far they are from understanding God and how much they still have to atone. Capital punishment is a crime when applied in God's name, and those who enforce it will answer for it just like any other murder. This is a question directed at all those that persecute those that follow different religions and beliefs, right? That kill in God's name. And unfortunately, many of the religions that exist today that still exist today, have used that throughout the centuries. The Christianity was responsible for a lot of persecutions and killings in the name of God. From the time that Christianity became an official religion of the empire in 383, 313 was stopped being persecuted when Constantine prohibited the persecution of Christians, and then it became the official religion some 60 years later. Before that, Christians were persecuted and killed in the name of different beliefs, right? Because they were not pagans. And then Christians start killing those that were not Christians, and that is something that we are still facing the consequences today, because other religions also think that they have the right to kill those who think different. I think that's the most challenging one in terms of responsibility, right? Because if we are going to think of someone that is condemned because he committed a crime, we shouldn't have the capital punishment, because it's just wrong. But it is more understandable, not acceptable, understandable, that someone that committed a crime receives the death penalty. Someone that just believes in a different God or a different way to be killed, it's really something beyond it's barbaric, right? It's really, the word is barbaric. So it's a crime, and those who enforce it will answer for it, just like any other murder. So someone that commits a crime in the name of God is a criminal.
Really two crimes.
Yes.
One, the arrogance to believe that one human or a system made by human can answer for God, can make decisions for God, and then to commit the punishment penalty.
You know, there's famous phrase by this philosopher, I think, I don't know who it is. There are 10,000 religions in the world, but don't worry, yours is the right one. Okay, so we're finished with the capital punishment, death penalty, and law of destruction. If anyone has any questions. Yeah. We are moving now to Chapter VII, which is law of society, necessity of social life, life of isolation, vow of silence, and family ties we're going to discuss here, okay? 766 is social life founded in nature. Certainly, God made human beings to live in a society. God has given human beings speech and other faculties they need for a social life, for a purpose. Why the necessity of social life? Because for us to evolve, we have to live in society. We need others. We need to help each other. We are inferior spirits with limited knowledge. We may have a lot of knowledge in one specific thing, but we have no knowledge in a lot of things. So we need to work together in order to progress as humankind, right? So we need all of us here working together. It's a natural law, and because it comes from God, and we have the ability to speak and other faculties, so we can communicate, interact, and live in society. The first seed of society, of course, is family, right? For us to preserve humankind, we have to procreate, and that starts with building a family, which is also a natural law, a divine law. So yes, it is a necessity of humankind at our stage of evolution to live in society. Now, when we become perfected spirits, we will still need to live in society to be able to help those less evolved than us to reach there. So life in isolation is never going to be an alternative for us. It can be for a very short period of time, but not as a rule for our evolution. 767, does absolute isolation conflict with the law of nature? Yes, since human beings instinctively seek associations, and all people are meant to help advance progress by helping one another. Again, more of the same, right? To isolate ourselves from society we are not helping our progress and society's progress, others' progress. So it conflicts with the law of nature. We are meant to help one another to advance progress. In seeking out
It's pay attention to the word absolute. It's very important. It's absolute isolation. Because then it's going to speak about relative isolation, and the answer will be slightly different. Right? So if we see a chimpanzee or a gorilla in isolation nature, you say it's not normal. Those are social animals, they should be in a group. Human beings are the same thing. We are social beings. The normal for us is to seek companionship, is to be among us others of the same kind. If we isolate, we are stepping outside of what called normal. So something is wrong.
Yes. 768. In seeking out society, do human beings only yield to a personal motivation, or there is a greater providential purpose? Humans must progress. They cannot do it alone because they do not possess all faculties and need contact with other humans. They become animal-like and stunted when isolated. No one possesses the complete range of faculties. Through social union, human beings complete one another and mutually secure their well-being. Because they need one another, they have been created for living in society and not in isolation. Again, for us to progress, and again, our progress has two wings, moral and intellectual. Intellectual progress happens when we are learning things. We have more opportunities to learn on the intellectual side from others than by ourselves. Even if we're trying to learn by ourselves, we are learning from the work of others, right? If we are studying, isolating ourselves to study a book, the book was written by someone else. So we are learning from others. And the moral evolution happens because living in society, we learn what is right and what's wrong according to our understanding. We learn how to relate ourselves with others, to respect others, to create barriers for ourselves, to control our inferior tendencies, that by living in isolation, we are not going to do it, right? So we don't possess the complete range of faculties. We are imperfect spirits. We need others for both our moral and intellectual progress. We depend on others. Okay. Law of isolation, vow of silence. As a rule, we understand that social life is founded in nature as well as all preferences. Why is absolute isolation wrong if an individual finds satisfaction in it, and since all predilections are found in nature? This satisfaction is selfish. There are those who find satisfaction in getting drunk. Do you approve of them? God is not happy with lives that are doomed to not being useful to anyone. Again, the question is very interesting, right? Because some individuals may find very good to isolate themselves from the world. And we hear from time to time, we hear of these cases of individuals that isolate themselves, right? But what the Spirit tells us very clear is selfish, right? Because you're not contributing for the progress of humankind. And you're not contributing to your own progress, right? Are you progressing? Yes, we are always progressing. So how someone that lives in isolation progress? By learning that it's wrong to live in isolation. Even if it's going to live in isolation the rest of their lives, they'll look back and they'll see that it was a wasted opportunity. So they will learn that it was a wasted opportunity. So it's progress. That's when we say we are always progressing. we are always learning, even if we are not recognizing and we think that we are stagnate. It can be a very small progress, but it is progress. Um, and again, the spirit says here, those that find satisfaction in a lot of things that are not helpful to anyone, and but they're happy. So, face consequences. We all face consequences.
So again, here Kardec asks why is absolute isolation? Again, so the word is important here. And also makes a comment that it's founded in nature, it is natural, as well as all preference, meaning that that's what we want. That's our preference to be in community. So isolation is not normal. It's like being drunk. Being drunk is seeking to be in an altered state of normalcy, no longer normal. To seek to be high or whatever drug or chemical you get into, it's seeking to be in an altered state of normalcy. It's no longer normal.
Yeah.
If people make those choices, does it mean that it's right? Does it mean that it's good?
Okay, someone wrote. Should we view spiritual isolation like the life of monks as a mistake or as a valid path? Very good question, Proudman. Can I have your name, Proudman? Alcione. Okay. Hi. Yes, there are monks that live in isolation, isolated from others. There are some very few, one or another, that through this isolation, because they are so much elevated spiritually, they help humanity by their vibrations, their positive vibration, their spiritual vibrations. So yes, some of them, very few, the exception, are doing it for the right reasons and are helping humanity. But the majority of them, unfortunately, they are making wrong choices, right? Again, they're following their beliefs. They are believing that by doing that, they are helping their group or they're helping society. And they eventually will have to understand that was not the best path. But again, we're not going to say it's wrong because they truly believe in what they are doing. That's a difference in being wrong and being useful. Is it useful for us as society? Most of them, not really. Some of them, few of them, yes. But we respect everyone's path, right? As long as they are not causing harm to others, it's a respectful path that they choose, and we try to accept and respect like everyone, right? If someone tells us that they are atheists, they don't believe in anything, and are not interested in hearing arguments against their beliefs, we are going to respect and we're not going to discuss, because it's everyone's right to follow their own path as long as they do not cause harm to others. So if they are doing it for what they believe are the right reasons, it's not a mistake. It's a path they chose, which is not the best according to what we understand. But how many of us are choosing the wrong path also in our lives, right? So yes, Danny. Yes, Danny.
But monks who live in a monastery usually are living a social life.
Yes.
I mean, it's isolated, but they have to cook, they have to eat, they have to decide, vote, fight, or they are socializing in a manner if
No,
they
you're
live
right.
in a group. Yeah.
The question is because in those communities, there are those monks that isolate themselves completely, right?
That community.
From that community, including from that community. No, those that live in the communities, it's like the nuns that live in convents, it's like it's what they believe, their religion they follow. We're talking here about monks that isolate themselves from everyone else, including other monks, right? So that, but again, as Alcione mentioned here, sometimes quiet moments can help everyone as long as we get learnings from it, right? Yes, temporary isolation, like Elmo said, absolute. The problem is absolute isolation. Sometimes, to retreat ourselves, to reflect, to analyze, to take a breath from our busy lives helps us to grow, right? But we need to understand that the progress is done in society, that is more helpful to us to live in society and interact, that in the long run is what's going to help us grow faster. But yes, we can choose any path, right? Sometimes you read about those that try to run away from society because they fear if they live in society, they are going to be corrupted.
The next question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's two things, right? One is abandon society completely, and two is take a little break, take a little vacation from society. That could be helpful. A little time off would be helpful.
Yeah.
It's like abandon work or go on vacation. Different things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was going to comment and I forgot it was the next one. So let's read the next one and then we comment. What should we think of those who live in complete seclusion to escape negative contact with the world? It is twice as selfish. But if they endure such seclusion as a form of atonement through difficult self-deprivation, is it not, is it not praiseworthy? The best of all atonements is to do more good than evil. They avoid one wrongdoing by falling to another, since they disregard the law of love and charity. So here, for us to reflect, those that isolate themselves to escape negative contact with the world, it is twice as selfish, in the sense that they are not facing their problems, they are not facing the world, they are hiding from the world. So it is selfish in that sense. So the opportunity to learn from society, the opportunity to learn by living in family or in a society, it's a blessed opportunity that God gives us with each incarnation. If we run away from it, we are going to aggravate our responsibility. And then Kardec asks, but if they endure such seclusion as a form of atonement through difficult self-deprivation, is not praiseworthy? And then the answers from the spirits is really direct and brilliant. The best of all atonements is to do more good than evil, right? That's the only guarantee that we are progressing. If we're doing more good than evil, we are progressing. We guarantee that we are progressing. And again, it's to do more good than evil. We are imperfect spirits. We are going to make mistakes. We are going to make wrong choices and cause harm to ourselves and to others. But the more we practice good and the more we self-evaluate ourselves, right? The more we study Joana de Angelis and learn how to learn about ourselves, and spiritual psychology helps us grow, the more we are going to be able to analyze ourselves, because we cannot prevent from making mistakes. We are imperfect spirits. If we could avoid making mistakes, we wouldn't be here. And we actually learn from our mistakes. That's the important thing, right? We have to learn from the mistakes we make so we can grow. And again, we create consequences for the law of cause and consequences when we make a mistake knowing what we are doing. That creates a karma. If we make a mistake because we didn't know what we're doing, it's the punishment is not. It's not the natural law does not punish. It creates cause and consequence. So there is almost no consequence of doing something wrong for lack of knowledge. The problem is when we learn and we repeat the mistake. Then that we start to create karma for ourselves, consequences. Okay? All right, I think we're going to stop here. We have a couple of questions left, but we leave it for next week, and then we have family ties also, which is a good subject. So what do we have this weekend? On Saturday, the United States Spiritist Federation talk will be by Marcia Trajano. She's going to talk about Jesus Christ and the spiritual meaning of Christmas. This is by Marcia Trajano, Saturday, 11 a.m., through the United States Spiritist Federation YouTube page. This Sunday, we are going to study the book Jesus in the Home. It's the second Sunday of the month. It's when we study Jesus in the Home. I think the book club is on a break, right, Danny?
We have the last session next week,
Oh, you still
last
have
chapter.
Yeah.
And then we stop and we come back on the 7th of January. And I was looking up to try to remember the new book, which I can't remember the new book's name. Sorry. I was trying to find here, but yeah. We have the next book, but
I think let me see if I remember. No,
it's a new published book.
by Divaldo Franco, right?
I think so. I don't remember. Sorry.
Blank. Yeah, me too.
I haven't bought it yet, but we are starting a new book next year.
Okay.
But I will. We can post soon.
For our Thursday meetings, both Christmas and New Year's fall on Thursday, so we won't have any meeting. We will have next Thursday, and then we won't have for 2 weeks the Thursday meetings. The Sundays, we won't have the middle Sunday between Christmas and New Year's, and the Mondays also. So we'll be closed from Christmas to New Year's. We'll be back on January 4th, but we still have this weekend and the Monday and next week we have our regular meetings. Okay. Yes, Dan.
I found it.
Okay.
It's called Arduous Ascension by Divaldo Franco and Victor Hugo.
Victor Hugo. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Arduous Ascension.
Victor Hugo.
Victor Hugo.
Okay. Thank you all. Elmo, can you do our final prayer?
Sure. And we give thanks to God our Father, to our Master Jesus Christ, to our spiritual benefactors for coming to our home, for all the inspiration, for the guidance. We ask to be protected throughout the week, to be inspired to put all the lessons that we learn here to good use. Seeking to not only learn from Jesus Christ, but to apply his teachings in our daily lives. May we be vigilant with the sentiments that we bring in our hearts, with the thoughts that we allow to surround us, our minds continuously, to be able to be back here next week, ready to learn, ready to share the very little that you have to offer. Hopefully a little bit better than what we are today. And we ask permission to close our meeting. So be it.